4 years, Kyle Richards and Mauricio Umansky looked like one of reality television's most unshakable couples. They built a family, a business empire, and a life that appeared almost impossible to break. But when their marriage began falling apart, the questions didn't stop with why did Kyle and Mauricio split. They quickly became much more personal. Why did Kyle suddenly seem so different? Why was she spending so much time with Morgan Wade? And why did Kyle appear increasingly comfortable refusing to define herself in the way fans expected? Then came the question that had been circulating for months. Was Kyle Richards finally ready to talk about her sexuality? Kyle has addressed the speculation surrounding her personal life, but what makes the conversation fascinating is that she has repeatedly pushed back against the idea that she owes the public a simple label. And now, after the Mauricio split, every statement she makes is being examined under a microscope. Was the end of her marriage connected to a completely different side of Kyle that viewers had never seen? Was her friendship with Morgan simply friendship? Or has Kyle been discovering a new version of herself away from the marriage that defined so much of her adult life? Tonight, we are breaking down Kyle's comments, the Mauricio separation, the Morgan Wade speculation, and why Kyle's approach to her sexuality has become one of the most discussed parts of her story. Because this isn't just about a headline. It's about a woman trying to figure out who she is after a relationship that lasted for decades. And the answer Kyle gives may surprise you. To understand why Kyle's sexuality became such a major topic, you have to go back to the beginning of her relationship with Mauricio. 4 years, the couple represented one of the most recognizable marriages in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills universe. They weren't perfect, and the show never pretended they were. There were arguments. There were disagreements. There were moments when Kyle questioned Mauricio's priorities, and moments when Mauricio appeared frustrated by Kyle. But despite all of that, they continued moving forward. They raised their children together. They built businesses together. They attended events together. And for viewers watching from the outside, there was always the assumption that whatever problems existed behind closed doors, Kyle and Mauricio would eventually work through them. That's what made their separation so shocking. It wasn't simply another housewives' relationship ending. This was a marriage that had become part of Kyle's identity. Mauricio wasn't just her husband. He was part of the story viewers had followed for years. So when cracks began appearing in their relationship, fans immediately started looking for an explanation. Some blamed distance. Some pointed toward changes in their careers. Others wondered whether they had simply grown apart. But then another storyline entered the conversation. Morgan Wade. And suddenly, questions about Kyle's personal life took on an entirely different dimension. Kyle's friendship with country singer Morgan Wade became one of the most heavily analyzed friendships in reality television. The two appeared incredibly close. They spent time together. They supported each other's careers. Kyle appeared in Morgan's music-related projects. And their chemistry became something viewers couldn't stop discussing. Social media did what social media always does. Fans began connecting dots. Some believed the friendship was completely innocent. Others wondered whether there was something deeper. And eventually, Kyle was forced to address the speculation. But rather than giving viewers the definitive answer they wanted, Kyle often emphasized the complexity of the situation. She didn't seem interested in allowing strangers to decide what her relationship with Morgan meant. And that became an important part of the conversation. Because Kyle wasn't necessarily saying, "Here's exactly who I am." Instead, she appeared to be saying, "You don't get to define me for me." That distinction matters. Especially after a decades-long marriage. Imagine spending years being publicly known as someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's business partner, and then suddenly finding yourself in a period where you're asking what your identity looks like outside that relationship. That's not something that can always be explained in one interview. Sometimes it's a process. Kyle has been asked directly about her sexuality and the speculation surrounding Morgan. Her responses have generally avoided giving audiences the dramatic confession many expected. Instead, she has emphasized that she doesn't necessarily feel the need to put herself inside a particular box. That response created even more discussion. Because in today's celebrity culture, audiences often expect labels. Straight, gay, bisexual, queer, something definitive. But Kyle's approach has been much more personal. She has essentially maintained that she knows herself better than anyone watching the show. And that's important because there is a huge difference between being curious about someone's life and demanding an explanation for it. Kyle has spoken about the importance of being open to personal discovery, especially as people get older and circumstances change. And her separation from Mauricio created exactly that opportunity for self-reflection. For the first time in decades, Kyle was no longer simply navigating marriage. She was navigating herself. The separation from Mauricio didn't happen in isolation. It came after years of marriage and after their children had grown older. That means Kyle wasn't simply dealing with the end of a romantic relationship. She was dealing with the end of an entire chapter. And when one chapter ends, people often start questioning things they previously accepted without thinking. Who am I? What do I want? What makes me happy? What relationships actually fulfill me? What kind of future do I want? Those questions can completely change the way someone sees themselves. And Kyle appeared to be going through that process publicly. The interesting part is that she didn't suddenly announce a completely different identity. Instead, she seemed more comfortable acknowledging uncertainty. That may be why her comments about sexuality generated so much attention. Fans were looking for a dramatic reveal. Kyle was giving them something more complicated. Personal freedom. Morgan Wade became central to the conversation because of how visible their friendship was. The two women appeared comfortable around each other in a way that fans immediately noticed. There was humor. There was affection. There was support. And there was a level of closeness that reality TV audiences are trained to analyze. But friendship doesn't automatically equal romance. That's an important distinction. Two women can be extremely close without being romantically involved. At the same time, someone who is questioning their own identity doesn't necessarily have to announce a label immediately. Both things can be true. Kyle can have a close friendship with Morgan. Kyle can be exploring parts of herself she didn't previously discuss publicly. And Kyle can still choose not to define the relationship for millions of strangers. That's her decision. The fascination comes from the fact that viewers have been watching the story develop in real time. There is another reason this storyline became so powerful. Kyle isn't a newcomer. She has been on television for years. Fans have watched her mature. They watched her become a mother. They watched her build a marriage. They watched her fight with friends. They watched her reconcile with people. And now they are watching her rebuild her identity. That creates a unique connection. Viewers aren't simply interested in gossip. They are interested because Kyle's situation reflects something many people understand. Sometimes people reach a point in life where the identity they've built no longer feels complete. And when that happens, discovering who you are can be uncomfortable. Especially when millions of people believe they already know you. Kyle has had to navigate that pressure while cameras are rolling. Every new friendship becomes suspicious. Every outfit becomes a statement. Every social media post becomes evidence. Every smile becomes a theory. That's an impossible standard. Ultimately, the biggest story isn't whether Kyle fits into the label fans have created for her. The bigger story is that Kyle appears determined to control her own narrative. Her marriage to Mauricio was a huge part of her life. Its end changed her. Her friendship with Morgan became another major chapter. And the public questions about her sexuality forced Kyle to confront something even more personal. But there may not be a dramatic final answer. Maybe Kyle doesn't want one. Maybe she believes identity can evolve. Maybe she simply wants the freedom to live her life without having every relationship categorized by strangers. And perhaps that's the most revealing part of everything she's said. Kyle Richards spent decades being known as Mauricio Umansky's wife. Now she's being asked, "Who are you without him?" And Kyle's answer appears to be, "I'm still figuring that out." That's not weakness. That's not necessarily a confession. It's simply the reality of personal growth. And if Kyle has learned anything from years in the public eye, it's probably that the moment you allow other people to define you, you've already lost control of your own story. So whether Morgan Wade is simply one of Kyle's closest friends, whether Kyle's understanding of herself continues to evolve, or whether she eventually chooses to explain more, one thing is certain. Kyle Richards is no longer letting the audience write the ending for her. And that could make the next chapter of her story the most interesting one yet. So now the question is no longer just about Kyle Richards and Mauricio Umansky. It's about who Kyle is becoming after the end of that marriage. Her friendship with Morgan Wade, the questions surrounding her sexuality, and the changes in her personal life have created a story that fans are still trying to understand. But one thing remains clear: Kyle has made it obvious that she wants the freedom to define herself on her own terms. Do you think Kyle is finally embracing a side of herself she couldn't explore before? Or do you think fans have simply read too much into her friendship with Morgan? And what do you think about Kyle's decision not to put herself into a specific label? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because there's always another Beverly Hills story waiting to explode. And remember, sometimes the biggest reality TV revelations aren't the things celebrities say. They are the things they choose not to explain. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.